So I went to post the other video about propagating blueberries, and I saw people asking about pruning blueberries. These are wild blueberries that were in the way of a path that I was making last year to get back to the wall. I don't have any big blueberry bushes at the house that are not wild varieties, but I clipped this one last year just because it was in the way, so I kind of wanted to show what happens when you do it. With blueberries, you can see, I mean, it's an old bush. That's pretty thick. It's been here for a long time, right? It was a big stringy thing that was growing all along this path over here with just these long, you can see I cut it right here. But point is, when I cut it there, all of this stuff is all the stringy stuff you see is the new growth, okay? And what you want to do is do this, but more down here. If you have an older bush, you want to do it closer to the ground. See, it got cut right here, and that was perfect, because that would have split the first year. If somebody would have kept it and kept cutting it back, then it would have bushed out more. It's up to you where you want to decide, but if you have a blueberry bush that has all these giant sticks, these big, thumb-sized sticks coming out of it, you want to cut them closer to the ground, because it'll make it shoot up all this stuff. And you can do it now. If they're established, they're much more susceptible to cold. They just survive the winter. Even the new growth is fine. The deer actually picked most of it off already and recently. I almost put my coffee in a pile of deer poop. But yeah, basically, if you have any old growth, all of this thick stuff, this isn't going to do anything. But because it got clipped and stopped, it scared it into thinking, oh, I better hurry up and make a thicker bush. And that's what it does everywhere you cut it like that. Some over here that I clipped that just started. But that's what you want to do. That's why all this new growth is up here. Yet down here, there's nothing. Nothing new at all. And if you don't ever prune your blueberry bushes, they're just going to grow super stringy like that and try to hit the treetop. I mean, this is in the woods, so it's a little bit extreme. But if you cut it, literally, if I was going to prune this for this year, I would cut it here, right about here. About that high, about 2 feet off the ground. And even though it sounds crazy because I would be cutting all of this off, it's going to bush out from there. And then when you prune it next year, you can go a little bit higher because you'll have more established growth that won't be super thick and crazy like that middle stalk. So that really is the trick with blueberries. You want to pick the spot that you want it to do that, where it's going to fire off new growth. You want that to be at a good level. You don't want it to be right at the ground because you want it to get air down there. You want, all that good stuff. But just because I saw how to prune blueberries, that's really what you're going for, is to cut that top so that it sends out new stringy bushy growth like this. And then every year you just go back and just keep it thin. That's it. This one would probably want to be cut at the end of this year because that's going a little haywire. But there's not a lot to it. The thing is, if you don't do it regularly, you're going to want to have one year where you really cut the thing back. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I say it, but it's true. It'll give you much better bushing and way more berries throughout the years. I promise you that. Hope it helps.